Good afternoon and welcome to your weekly FX options report. Today is Wednesday, January 13th, 2010. In today's session in midweek trade, the major equity averages have managed to trade in positive territory. And on the fundamental front, U.S. earnings have been in focus as well as developments out from Washington, D.C. Now, in today's session, chief executives from the top 4 U.S. banks testified before the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission. And they did say that they underestimated the financial crisis, but at the same time, defended bonus and compensation practices. And in terms of economic data releases, it has been quiet in the U.S., but overseas data, especially out from Germany, was in focus. Now, Germany's Federal Statistics Office reported that GDP contracted by 5% in 2009, and exports were down by 14.7%, while business investment fell by 20%. Now, shifting our focus on over to the spot FX market, we're seeing that the dollar is higher against the Japanese yen and trading slightly lower against the euro. Now, the high-yielding currencies have recovered from weakness in the previous session that came on the heels of China announcing moves that hinted at monetary policy tightening. Meanwhile, the euro-dollar did recover from a slide following the weaker-than-expected GDP report that came out earlier this morning. At the same time, the British pound was stronger against the U.S. dollar, and in terms of economic data out from the U.K., for the month of November, industrial output rose by 0.4% month over month. Now, one way to trade your views on U.S. dollar strength or weakness is to take a look at ISE's FX options. One advantage is that they are U.S. dollar denominated. For more information, you can go to www.fxoptions.com. And now we turn our focus on over to the individual FX option pairs, starting out with AUX, which is the dollar against the Australian dollar. And for that pair, the bias does remain bullish. The pair is also shaping a rounding bottom and does call for a bounce. The preference of trading central analysts is long positions above the pivot, which is at 106, with targets currently standing at 114.25 and 118.15 in extension. And now moving on to the BPX, which is the U.S. dollar against the British pound, the upside does prevail for that pair. And even though the continuation of the consolidation cannot be ruled out, its extent should be limited. The preference of trading central analysts for that pair is long positions above the pivot of 60, with targets standing at 63.50 and 65.50 in extension. Now, very quickly, looking at the CDD, which is the U.S. dollar against the Canadian dollar, caution is advised. Now, the intraday technical indicators are mixed and do call for caution. The preference of trading central analysts for the CDD pair is long positions above 102.50, with targets standing at 107.50 and 111.25 in extension. Now, moving on to the EUI, which is the U.S. dollar against the euro. A bounce is expected. The daily RSI is facing what appears to be a formation of a rising trend line, and that should spark a rebound. Now, the preference of trading central analysts for that pair is long positions above 67.80, with targets at 70.50 and 72 in extension. And now, very quickly, looking at the SFC, which is the dollar against the Swiss franc. A rebound is in sight. The pair is pulling back on its new support ahead of a rebound, and the preference of trading central analysts for the SFC is long positions above the pivot of 101, with targets standing at 105.10 and 108 in extension. And last but not least, let's take a look at the YUK, which is the U.S. dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, for that pair, the upside does prevail. It is pulling back on its formal channel resistance, which should act now as a support. And the preference of trading central analysts is long positions above the pivot, which currently stands at 88, with targets at 93.50 and 96 in extension. And now let's move on to your weekly trend opinion for ISE's FX options. Now, last week the dollar was mixed against the majors, and trading central analysts closed out their PZO positions because of the 100% gain that they saw. And for the position on the EU, which is the U.S. dollar, the euro against the U.S. dollar, they were stopped out on that pair with a limited 22% loss. Now, in terms of portfolio performance, it currently stands at 1,379.10% since its inception, which was in August of 2007. And for the entire year of 2009, the portfolio does stand at 669.81%. And now we bring you a trade alert for ICE's FX options from Trading Central. Now this week they are waiting for the US dollar recovery to resume, and therefore they will be recommending, as they did in their last follow-up, the AUX. Now they are looking at this pair because it is shaping a rounding bottom, which should spark a recovery in the coming days. And looking ahead to next week for the FX options pairs, Trading Central will be keeping a close eye on the EUI, YUK, as well as the PZO. Now they will be looking at the YUK because it is pulling back on its new support before a new up move, and they are looking at the EUI because it is pulling back on a strong support area. And last but not least, they are looking at the PZO because it is shaping an interesting support base, while the daily RSI is supported by a bullish trend line. And that does wrap it up for your weekly FX options report. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday for your latest update. Thanks for watching and have a great day.